welcome back to Tech Odyssey. So I saw something that was really obscure, and I wanted to talk about it because kind of coming out of left field, and I'm curious if there's anything, if it's actually real, because I've been reading that there might be a Mediatek processor in the upcoming Samsung Galaxy S22 FE when it gets here later this year. Also, rumors of possible region exclusive Mediatek installation in some of those devices where there might traditionally be an Exynos. And that's really, really weird. It's really weird. Somebody actually mentioned this in the comments the other day, and I kind of entertained it, and I went back and forth. I mean, I guess it's plausible, and more interestingly enough, the Mediatek chip, the Dimensity 9000, which is the flagship that they came out with, this guy right here, because I have one, because somebody was kind enough to get it for me from the Mediatek Summit. Really cool, this whole system on a chip processor thing for phones. I actually made a video about it, and it might be more relevant now today than ever. I said the Mediatek Dimensity 9000 is the future, because it's really interesting that Mediatek has done so much over the last year or two to rehabilitate their image, to really get their chips deployed out in a lot of different equipment, medical stuff, and more phones. And they kind of stepped up in this time of the shortage for the Qualcomm Snapdragon chips. So a lot more phones, especially like the Chinese variants, the Xiaomi's, the Redmi's, the Pocos, some of those guys you've seen show up with these Dimensity chipsets, and people were like, what's a Dimensity? I don't know, but I like it. And surprisingly enough, I tested out several phones with them, and they really are up to the task. The only problem I had was that some of the software, the cameras, were not quite calibrated to take advantage of the processing power for like the computational photography and things like that. But straight line speed and performance is pretty top notch. So I don't necessarily expect to see it in the next S23 Ultra, at least not in North America. I think that's pretty well firmly rooted in Qualcomm, but it leaves a really interesting discussion for the Exynos chipset. And I think it's funny because when you talk about Exynos, what kind of image does that make appear in your mind? Not really anything good. And I hate to say that because you would think Samsung, of all people, would be able to make a good chip, especially since they produced about half of the flagship Qualcomm Snapdragon chips, like the 888, the 8th Generation 1. They've been doing this tandem thing with Qualcomm for years, so much so that they got the exclusivity on the Snapdragon 835 back with the Galaxy S8 because they produce basically half the chips. So there's a lot of demand for them, but the Exynos chip, not so much demand, and pretty much anybody that gets one internationally never has anything good to say about it. They're typically worse on heat, they're worse on battery life, they're not as well optimized, the power just isn't quite there, and they seem to have more issues. So much so, my buddy Tech Tablets, he's made a lot of observations about the way that it's performed in his S22 Ultra. So it's just very troubling that Samsung can't seem to get it right. And if they're going to abandon ship and go towards the Dimensity chipset with Mediatek, that would be really telling, because it seems like the future here is in-house silicon. When you look at what Apple's done, that's really helped pave the way for them to stand out apart from Android manufacturers. They've got all their own chips, they do their in-house software, they make their own hardware. It's all fine-tuned. That's why it runs so much smoother with so much less, and it's way, way more battery optimized. And then you look at what Google is doing, and of course, they've given a crash course of what not to do with your first chip. It hasn't really worked out so well, but it's finally, I think they're getting their head wrapped around it. And then you look at the Exynos processor that we get, and it's just not inspiring. So yeah, I would love to see a Dimensity 9000. The Dimensity 9000 is like neck and neck with the Snapdragon 888 and almost with the 8th Generation 1, I think, if not on par with it. And I think it's even benchmarked and better performance-wise than the Exynos flagship processor that's out right now. So really interesting proposition, and I totally would love to see it. But that leaves me with question marks, wondering, what is Samsung going to do? Are they going to take a hiatus? Are they going to save it for their lower-end chips? I don't really know what they're going to do, but it would seem like they would kind of want to double down on that because, one, the Dimensity chipset is still a Mediatek, so it doesn't quite carry that same pedigree as Qualcomm. Even though I think the Dimensity chip could probably perform neck and neck with it, even though it doesn't have millimeter wave in the current version, which is not that big of a deal to me, but I know some people really care about it. So we'll see what happens. I think it would really almost be like a removal of a couple pieces of armor off of the shield that is Samsung and make people question maybe their flagship status, maybe their business model. I don't know. Maybe this is just a way to try and balance it out a little bit better and not have such a demand for all the chips that they do, because they make a lot of chips. So they've got the Exynos chip, they got the Qualcomm chips. Maybe having a third party in there would help them out as well. I don't know. If it happens, we'll see. I'm very skeptical about it, but I've seen several outlets report on this now, to the point now that it's like, wow, this looks like it's a viable possibility. So I don't think it's the end of the world. I'm curious to see if it happens. I don't know, maybe it would be a way to try and sell the S22 FE for less and create more separation between it and the premium flagship S series. I don't really know what the strategy is here, but I hope that they would just redouble their efforts and actually try to make a good Exynos processor that could compete with Qualcomm, that could compete with Mediatek, as opposed to abandoning chip and then going the Mediatek route. Now, I don't expect to see this in the flagships. We certainly won't see it in the US, but it's feasible internationally. It could happen. I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. What do you think? Do you think that Samsung would be crazy to do this? Would it irk you to have a MediaTek chipset inside of your flagship or budget flagship Samsung device? A lot of people wouldn't like that. I know that there are some people who would be very adamantly against that. So it could be something that backfires. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think the processor is cool. I've been really impressed by it. I tested out several Dimensity chips this last year, like the 800, I think, the 1200, the 1400, a couple different ones, and they perform really well in most areas. So I think even better than the Exynos chips. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on this moving forward. Let's have some discussion, talk about it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think on this subject. I want to know. So that's all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to head down to the comment section. I'll get back with you. If you enjoyed the video, if you want to see more videos like this, more content that I put out every day, then please hit the like and the subscribe button to support the channel, and also the notification bell if you want updates and notifications when those videos come out, because I release them every single day, and I cover just about every single category of flagship and also some others that are out there on the market. So that's all I've got. As always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.